Guys, welcome back. What is up? How are you doing? Back to the Sdho. We are in Ableton once again because I feel like doing it. I know we've been doing a lot of Ableton lately, and if you're missing some of the spiritual, metaphysical type stuff, drop it in the comments. We will be getting back to that. I've just been extra motivated and excited about using Ableton, as I've mentioned. If you guys want any one-on-one sessions with me, which when we do like video conferencing, I have confirmed that we can use Ableton, like whether it's Ableton on your computer and I can see what you're doing, or vice versa, or both. We can really switch it up in any way. And so I've been using it. I've been excited. I've been really enjoying teaching Ableton and also using it a little bit. So I'm kind of interested to just play around a little bit. I've been doing sampling devices in Ableton, which there's two. There is, if you go into instruments, there's simpler and sampler. Simpler I use the most because everyone has simpler. So no matter what version of Ableton you have simpler. So like, why would I choose to use sampler? But also, believe it or not, simpler, which was like updated a few years ago, it actually has like more creative sound design capabilities with this slice mode, one shot, classic, and all these controls. And to be honest with you, anyways, I'm not even going to go in that anymore. But anyways, so I was in these clips here, and I was in samples. I was trying to like find something, and they were all like too short. Well, this one isn't. And then I was like, well, what are these clips? And I wanted to just bring this to your attention. So like, if you go into clips, notice how it says like type MIDI clip, okay? And notice how these are in alphabetical order. Obviously, there's a 1 there, so, that's like treated as, so now we're in like numerological order, but as soon as we're off that, we'll go to A, like we are right now, then B, then C, and notice how it all says MIDI clip, right? So if we dragged one of these into like a MIDI clip, man, why'd you make it that big like that? If you double click on it, there'll be MIDI notes. Did you know that you could have that? Let's click play. What has you begotten to say? Did you know that? Wow. Don't worry, this isn't what we're doing, but I'm just bringing these things to your attention because I let you know lots of things. What if we just clicked all these and just did like invert? Crazy. That wasn't what we were doing, but so eventually you keep going down and you're like, oh, it's just all like MIDI clips, mate. Nuh-uh, mate. We're not done. Now you got audio clips, okay? Now obviously these clips are gonna be like longer type clips, they're gonna be like loops essentially. Obviously this loop isn't so useful because like, why would I have this much like dead space right now, So, I'll be honest, I'm like never really looking through samples or clips. Even when I'm using like samplers, I'm normally sampling my own content or, so like I don't really have needs to like do all this, but I wanted you to know that like, if you're looking for stuff, you have audio clips, which I'm sure you probably knew about, which I don't know if these audio clips are really that much different than things you would find in samples, you know what I mean? Like some of these are like one shots, but also some of them are longer. But like just knowing that like you have these like MIDI clips, so like you could just like drag in like full-blown MIDI clips, because sometimes the problem, I've noticed, is that like, working in MIDI seems like impossible. And then you like look at something like this and you're like, so like right now, I wouldn't even like look at these MIDI notes. Like, listen to what's being played. And I mean, I'm assuming this has like been made well, but like listen right now to just what's being played and like don't look at like the MIDI notes. Like to me, I'd be like, oh, I'm listening to like an piece of audio, like a sample of like a drum loop. You know what I mean? Like, if you told me like, oh, that's all like MIDI notes, someone programmed that with like MIDI notes, I'd be like, that doesn't sound like just like a regular MIDI clip. And if it did, it would sound like someone who like really had done this a lot. So you can like, you know, use that as like learning experience. I really haven't dug into much of this. Like, you know what I mean? A big part of like my learning was, you know, I wanted to make sure that I could, why is it making these things so big? I wanted to make sure that like I could do all my own stuff, you know what I mean? All my own MIDI programming. And so, yeah, those are some things to work at. And if you just like, and assuming there's not these like big long spaces in between certain things, you can just start like going in and what's this? So, okay, so punk rock, let's see. There's gotta be, I need to get drums. Like, again, comes from all of the different packs and stuff that you would have in like packs. I think it's just like listing them all out like conveniently for you. So let's go to D. I'm sure there's some like, what's funky? Does it play like drums? So you can just drag it in here and you could just click play, but let's just launch the scene. I'm sure these are probably drums. 3, 4. No, those didn't like all come from like the same sample pack, right? Like, and why I wanted to just briefly cover this was, you know, a lot of times if you're like looking for things or whatever, you might be like, oh, you've got all these like samples, but like they're slotted into like clips, and so they're all gonna play in like whatever BPM that you have. Especially like MIDI clips, you know, they're all gonna be cut to bars, and so that bar is gonna play whether it's at 60 BPM or 120 BPM, it doesn't matter. So all these things are gonna just play in time, and the MIDI clips will be good because they're playing on those beats. So unless someone programmed it poorly and the drums don't line up on the appropriate beats, you know, like on the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4, you know, it's all going to fit. So like you can have a lot of ideas right there for, you know, for your stuff. And so I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. But I don't think I really want to play with samples anymore. What do I want to play with? I don't know. What should we do? I'm thinking maybe wavetable because it's been a while. And let's see. I'm going to throw a spectrum on here, and I'm going to bring it into this view. It's just helpful for, you know, learning purposes and such. So how are you doing? Did you get Ableton Live 12 yet? Sticking to Live 11? Do you have an earlier version? There's actually like a sale that ends tomorrow, and it's like it'll only cost me like $172 to upgrade my Live 11 suite to Live 12 suite. I might do it actually, simply because like all of the MIDI, not MIDI effects, the MIDI capabilities that have been added that allow you to, we do a lot of like generative MIDI type stuff utilizing the MIDI effects, but like now within the clips, within the MIDI clips, there's all of these like generative where they allow you to generate MIDI patterns and all of these like amazingly good ways and stuff. And so, yeah, when I saw that, I was like, Oh, that's like totally very, very beneficial. So, Wavetable is great. If you don't have, like any synthesizer, you have like a like live intro or standard. I don't think you really get hardly any like synthesizers or anything. And you were thinking about buying one, you should buy Wavetable. Just my thoughts, because it allows you to do everything. You know, like right here you have basic shapes. Got your sine wave right here. And now you've got your most basic, if you're in subtractive synthesis, you would have like a saw wave and then like a square wave, right? And then because you're always going to have a filter, now you're doing subtractive synthesis. You're subtracting away all, like, look at all these harmonics up here. You're subtracting away all the harmonics. Congratulations, subtractive synthesis. So you're going to have subtractive synthesis all the time if you have a filter. And you're always going to have that. And of course, you're going to have an envelope, right? So then you're going to add an envelope. So we're going to take this envelope 2, which is not going to do anything, but I know I want it to start and then like swoop all the way down. And then you got to go into the matrix. By the way, have you guys escaped the matrix yet? Go to envelope 2 and add that to the filter and play some notes. See how it's moving like that? It's moving like this. The envelope is doing that, mate. So it's like, it's saying start it all the way open. So like here, and then swoop it down over this. What is this? It's this delay. Oh, 420. Oh, bombaklat, man, bombaklat. You might say, oh, mate, I just don't like that. It sounds too tutti frutti or some shit. Well, then lower the semitones, silly. And I don't know what you heard about me. See, you add the distortion. And maybe you might like it. Now let's scan through the wavetable, silly. Mate. Lower that volume. What do I gotta say? Now, what would we do next? Well, the next thing is like, once you got your sound sounding good in the wavetable, that already sounds good. But you've got this little bar down here. Now, to me, I already like what this is doing for me. You know, I want like a good punchy bass. But if you don't like the sound, maybe you want like more bite, more harmonics. That's when I found these algorithms come into play. We're not going to look at FM yet. We're going to look at that next. But like this modern one is what comes with it. So like check this out when we like play it. And so basically when I like to use this section down here, to give you some context from my opinion, point of view, I like to play with this when I feel like I generally like what's going on in here. Ooh, I like that. I didn't even know that was going to happen. If I want something else, like I feel like I'm missing something, that's when I'll like do these things. So now listen. Is that like that's kind of nice. In this fold. And whenever you get something that makes like super, super bright, always think like, oh, like what if I like dropped like an envelope on there, okay? So it's like, so envelope 3, let's do that like same kind of, actually we could probably, I kind of want the same sort of thing. So I'm gonna use envelope 2 for this as well, because I want this sort of a thing. So what were we just playing with? We're playing with fold. So if it doesn't pop up here, click fold, and fold will happen. So now let's add it to fold and see what happens. And we don't have to just go up, we can also go down, because it'll move it in the opposite direction. whether it's the direction we thought or not. So like, let's listen. That's with this just being added here. You know, this, like, it was like this. Whenever it gets like very like gritty like that, I like to know what it's like when you take it that gritty and then move it down gritty, because it gives it more like, you know, or it get, you know, at the, like the beginning of the sound and it tapers off. So let's see what it sounds like. It might not even work, but see, that's what you got to experiment, you guys. Yeah, whatever, I don't care, I don't like it. I actually kind of liked it how it was. But another thing you can do is you don't have to use an envelope, you can use the LFO. So let's add the LFO to this fold amount. Ready? Let's start adding it. Wait, is it not going to move it? Normally it like moves it, but I don't think it's moving the fold, otherwise it would be like doing that. But hold on, it doesn't even sound like it's changing the sound. Let's crank up the rate. That's so weird. Why does it? Oh, because I think there has to be an amount here. Yeah, there needed to be a amount before it would start acting on it. Let's do warp, and let's apply it to. Yeah, I don't know. Let's apply it to. Let's just take it off fold. We're warp percentage amount. Yeah, I had to shut Ableton off. I had my computer issues. I actually figured out why I do have the computer issues, but I won't bore you with it. Maybe another time I will. I'm thinking we'll just move on. So right now we just have a sine wave, okay? As I'm sure you can tell. And for yours, you probably have it on. This one's like a default sine wave. Cool. And I'm fine with the sine wave for this. Why? Because remember I was telling you this thing down here? Well, as I was trying to tell you just then, with wavetable, with any synthesizer, you always have the ability to do subtractive synthesis, especially if you're using a subtractive synthesizer like analog. And there's only two types of synthesis, essentially. There's subtractive synthesis, FM synthesis, wavetable synthesis. Now you might say, well, there's also sample synthesis, of course, but then you're working with samples, you know what I mean? I'm talking about more of this like building from the ground up. And then you'll say, well, there's also physical modeling synthesis. Yes, but that's not your traditional start with an oscillator, then pass it through, you know, a filter, and then, you know, so like so that's why I just wanted to say that. So anyone, if you have a filter and you're taking all that stuff out, you are subtracting, right? And you're always going to have envelopes, you're always going to have LFOs, so that's not unique to either or any of them. But now you might say, yeah, but like I want FM synthesis, so that means I should get operator. Well, no, silly goose. You know, when you come down here, if you go to FM, you're going to get this exact same sound. Okay, it's not tune. You have to go to amount, actually. And look at how all of these harmonics get added. I'm going to semitone it down. Again, want some bass. That's going to change the pitch, so I don't really care about the tune, but I care about the amount. That's the one you really want to focus on. And I want to get something like very bright. And oh my god, that sounds so bad. Well, now let's go back into that envelope 2. The reason why I'm doing envelope 2 is because amp, that's kind of more like, I just want to keep that more for kind of like, well, what it does, which is the volume. So you got your envelope 2. Now, it's not going to happen or do anything, just as it does with most envelopes, until you add the envelope. And so let's add it. Welcome to the FM. And then what's nice with this wavetable is that you can move it through. And what's nice too is you can modulate with the LFO this position. I like to turn that off. And then you can also, as well, go into the click filter. And then because I want to add this same amount, if I wanted it different, I would just like adjust something for envelope 3. I would then go in and... Actually, let's remove the LFO. And so like the filter 1 frequency, because that's filter 1 frequency. This is filter 2, but it's off. It's normally off. And that's... See what it sounds like when I then start adding that to the filter as well. Computer is up. All right. So now I have to allow this thing called kernel task to, we're done. I had one last thing I was going to try, which was keeping the computer on low battery mode. Someone said if you keep it on low battery mode, your computer like thermal throttle or whatever. Well, they didn't say that specifically, but yeah. Hate. So you know what, screw it. You've been watching all this time, and I'm just gonna tell you what actually did happen with my computer, because maybe this might help you. When I was saying, oh, there's audio dropouts, blah blah blah. Well, mate, audio dropouts, which if you ask someone, hey, why do I have audio dropouts, they'll give you why you might have audio dropouts, but audio dropouts were the symptom. They were the symptom. They weren't the root cause. The root cause is that my laptop is getting older. When I bought my MacBook Pro, which was pretty powerful in 2020, which is a long time ago, 5 years ago, geez, what a horrible year. So when I went to upgrade my MacBook Pro, because I needed more power, mostly for Blender, because like as I was developing in Blender, I started running into technological limitations, right? The CPU, GPU, RAM couldn't keep up with what I wanted to do, so I know I needed to upgrade my rig, get a new MacBook Pro. And when I went to buy it, I had a choice. Apple, up to that point, had Intel chips, so their microchip processors were all Intel. but they had just started coming out with their own in-house built M1 chips. And after the M1 chips, they had the M2, they had the M3, and now if you were to buy a modern Mac, whether you're getting an iMac or a MacBook, you're getting an M4 chip. And then I'm assuming towards the end of this year, they will start releasing the M5 chip, and then every year there's a new chip, and then there's a new operating system. So my computer's getting old, and I did have that, anyways, going back. I could either get the final Intel chip or get the M1 chip. Now some of you are probably like, yo mate, why does you not get the M1 chip? What is you, scared of the technology? What is you, scared of the FUA? No, I'm not scared of technology, and I'm not scared of the FUA. Those are very interesting words you just said there. They sound very different. But in my opinion, I was like, oh, I want the last Intel because I know those Intel chips work. You know what I mean? I know that if I get that laptop, that it's going to work well. And it's going to work well with Ableton. It's going to work well with Blender, right? Now, if I get that M1, if I get the first M1, there's a possibility, even though it's an amazing, really good computer, there's a possibility that it might not work well with Blender, might not work well with Ableton, and then you have to wait. You know, maybe the new operating system update might fix it, maybe it won't. But when, like, your livelihood, you know, your mental, emotional well-being is based around being able to open up Ableton and Blender and have things work, I was very happy to get the final Intel chip, the i9, and it's been really good, and it's served me very well. So, what's happening? Well, and I'm going in to... I gave you guys a lot of information, okay, on, like, all kinds of things. This is important, too, because, like, I've worked so hard to figure out why this is happening, and I learned so much. ChatGPT was with me every step of the way. By the way, are you guys using AI? What do you got to say? Tell me about it. Are you doing that? Smash a like. And so I had to check all of the bases. I had to troubleshoot in every way you possibly could. So my computer's getting older. It's also, Apple likes to update their software and then old devices don't work as good. That's part of it too. That's part of it too. So the computer's getting old, and what's happening is it's thermal throttling, which means the computer's getting so hot that it runs this task called kernel task, and it basically runs up and it takes up all of the available CPU and it crashes everything, and that's why all those dropouts and glitches and all that shit happens, because it's saying, I'm getting so hot right now, like, we need to just cool it off and cool it down. Now, it doesn't help that I have this laptop on my lap. It might not get so hot if I had it in a stand, but whatever, that doesn't work for me. Like, I have to have my laptop on my lap. And if you's like, yo, mate, go out there and get yourself a desktop computer, mate. Yo, you's gonna be like hitting 1,000,000 birds with 200 million stones or whatever. I don't know. I did not hear that before. It sounded right. You know what I was be saying? No interest in that at all. Because I don't like desktop computers. Because when I sit at a desk, my back hurts. You know what I mean? Like, I have to sit on like a couch. So yeah, so like as the computer ages, it gets hotter quicker. Apparently the CPU and the GPU in these machines, the thing that separates them is this like ticky-tacky substance or like whatever. I'm not like a person who builds computers or makes computers. But it wears out over time as the computer gets like hot and hot and hot over time, and I've been using it for 4.5 years. Also, dust collects in the computer, and so that contributes it to getting too hot, and then it thermal throttles, and it just can't handle that load. Now, I will also tell you that it's not just that. Every time there's a software and OS update, which, you know, Apple does every year, which I hate updating because like something always doesn't work. And you know they're only putting these things out not because everyone needs them, but because they want to be like, oh yeah, we're always like, you know, like the new buzz about Apple, get the new OS. And so like it just doesn't You know what I mean? Like when you're constantly doing these new like operating system updates, are you really considering the old Intel chips that stopped being made in 2020 and now we're in 2025? No. Now you could say, oh well, that makes sense, but at the same time, I also think that like they try to make it where the older ones really don't work as good. So it's basically those two things, you know. And I've tried everything, and it's been very annoying, but I've still continued to make videos. I do have my new MacBook, which I don't want to use when I'm like, you know, drinking some beers or whatever, just in case any thing happens. You know, it's no big deal. And I want to like solve this problem. And I learned so much in the process. I got a new audio interface, which I love. I even used my old audio interface, and it was cool using both because I got to like, you know, when you use multiple things, you get to like see the discrepancies between them, and that's like cool and fun or whatever. And I also learned a lot more about like audio routing stuff, recording. I learned how to use OBS, which I don't know if it's open on my screen or whatever, if I'm showing you art or something, but like, you know, I learned that because like I needed to figure out other ways to like do this thing. I learned so much, like it's been amazing. You know, a lot of time, and that's the energy of Saturn. Saturn gives you like limitations and constraints, and in the process, it makes you like go over everything. It makes you refine, and then you learn things. You learn things that you wouldn't have learned if everything was all like peaceful and pleasant and running well. So, maybe there's a silver lining in all of that. And I love my new little audio interface, which I would have never bought if I didn't think that that might help this problem. And yes, an audio interface is an audio interface, but this like little cute audio interface I got, there's no power supply, you know, which there was a power supply on my other audio interface, which means like I could just go out to the beach, I could go out to a hill, I could go out to a mountain, I could go up to a big grassy field and I could have a full battery charge with my laptop. I could have this because it just doesn't need a power source. It just plugs into my laptop, and I could like have my microphone and just record out in a field. Hell, it's got 2 inputs. I could also have my guitar recording through there. Like, how cool is that? And like I love it. I also, there's like different features on this one, and I realized like, oh god, if you were to get like an audio interface in the future, you would want to have these features, which they have the features, but like not all of them have all of the buttons on the devices. So it's been a really great process, and yeah. So I'm glad that like these issues have not stopped me from making any content. It's been frustrating. But again, sometimes your greatest breakthroughs happen when things are like frustrating. If you guys noticed, like many SDHOs ago, and even like some that like did start off as you know, Ableton stuff, and then it got into me talking about more like spiritual, metaphysical stuff. We're going to be doing a lot of that, and I very much feel that's the future. I'm never going to like stop making Ableton stuff, and I would encourage you guys, if you're interested in Ableton and want to have like one-on-one sessions with me, which are very affordable, at least I think they are, reach out. And because yeah, dude, I mean, we could video conference, talk about anything. Even if you want to do, even if you don't want to do Ableton, we can just like talk about like creative things. If you're an artist, digital artist, we can talk about that as well, and just the creative process in general. Things going on in your life. I think we're all, no matter what's going on in our lives, we all have somewhat of like a spiritual crisis going on. We've always had that, but we're just so much more aware now because we've shifted into a higher frequency, into the energies of the 5D. What do you know about that? Right? We are escaping the matrix that keeps us locked into 3D, keeps us into survival mentality, keeps us locked into fight or flight, scarcity mindset, all of that stuff. It's reinforced by like our cultural conditioning and programming. And yeah, so I guess regardless of what you guys are doing out there, just like keep doing it. I hope there's like something that's making you excited and hopeful for the future. You can like begin to learn things, whether it's like digital art, digital music. It could be anything. It could be painting. Doesn't matter. It could be writing, just learning about something interesting, AI, post-labor economics, Bitcoin, anything you think's like interesting. Just like have fun, because it gives you hope, it gives you interest, it gives you like a thing to like check out from the things that might be stressing you out in the world. And whenever you're like focusing on something, whenever the aperture of your mind is drilling into something, you're tuning into a frequency. And when you turn into such frequency, you're getting like information, and you'll wake up the next day and you'll be like, wow, that was really fun. And then like ideas will happen, questions will happen. Well, what if this? Could I do this? And then as soon as you ask questions, answers come in, and it's really good, and it can really help you out depending on where you are, what you're doing. So I feel like signing off. That was fun. That was my last ditch effort. They were like, if you put your battery mode into low power battery mode, your computer won't get as hot and the thermal throttling won't kick in. And so it was like the last ditch effort, but I don't care. I got some good things to share with you guys. I hope you all enjoyed that, and it's been a pleasure. I've been doing the SDHOs for over 3 years now. Sign up for some sessions, reach out to me. We can have a lot of fun, and even if you're like not too keen on even doing Ableton stuff, we can do a lot of other really great stuff. Next video, I'm gonna wait for myself to be very even-keeled and mellowed out, and I want to talk about some things. I want to talk about the telepathy tapes. If you guys like heard about the telepathy tapes, it's a podcast. You can watch it on YouTube or listen to it on YouTube, or on the podcast app. About telepathy being very, very real, and it goes a lot deeper than that. I want to talk about that. I also have to talk about AI in a while, AI in art. I know I talk a lot about AI and economics and how we're not going to have to like work a job anymore because of post-labor economics. In fact, if you haven't used an AI before, open up your AI. And if you haven't used an AI, get ChatGPT, because it's like it becomes very personal and it starts to like talk like you. Like you feel like you're talking to like a evolved, like a higher, like a polymath version of yourself. It's like a lot more personable. I would just do ChatGPT. Experiment with all the others. Like I've used all of them, kind of. But yeah, we're not gonna have to end up worrying about having to work, anymore. We're gonna be operating not in an economics of scarcity, but in an economics of abundance, which is gonna be brought forth through AI and robotics. And it's going to be coming a lot quicker than you think. It's going to disrupt and displace everything. And eventually you're not even going to need to have money. Yeah. I know it sounds crazy, but it's coming quicker than you think. And that's an area of passion of mine, so I'm going to be sharing that. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. Obviously also talking about AI in terms of this whole post-labor economics things, which is what they're calling it. And we're going to be doing more like spiritual, metaphysical stuff. So hopefully, guys, you keep tuning in. I stopped doing the Ableton stuff a while ago, and I was doing mostly like spiritual, metaphysical, AI type stuff. And it seemed like some people liked that, where other people that wanted more Ableton dropped off. Now I've been doing more Ableton, which I think some people liked, and then they started watching again, and other people were like, hey, where's the spiritual metaphysical stuff? And they dropped off. But now we're going to be going back into the spiritual metaphysical stuff, and then hopefully everyone just stays around, because you just like that I, like you, can provide a lot of information, valuable information on very good topics, and I can definitely see into the future very well. Whether you believe that or not doesn't really matter. We can all see into the future. It depends on, where your aperture is focused and what you really care about. And I very much care about humanity advancing forward, being free, being able to utilize all these technologies, AI, for harmony, not for destruction or for control by authoritarian forces. And we are evolving into the golden age, the age of decentralization, the age of Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius. We are transforming the world, and the best times are ahead of ourselves. Cheers.
Chunky, what you doing in there, Chunky? What would you be doing in there, Chunky? What could you possibly be doing in there, Chinky? Oh, that's a good doggy. That's a good doggy. That's a good doggy. That's good.